There's a U option in the upper right-hand corner. But self-reach is one. In the window. How do computers work?
Only someone here knew.
No. That's probably good.
Yeah.
All right, now I can't see chat, but no one else is on a laptop in here, right? So maybe we'll just go back. I can't see the names. That's fine. Okay, all right. Let's see. I don't have any notes on your intro, Landon. So do you want to do your own intro? Do you want me to wing it?
Yeah, I can do my intro.
Okay, all right.
I had a spiel somewhere, but I don't know where it is. But
okay.
Yeah. Hello. I had a bunch of stuff I was thinking about saying, and then it's like all gone now that I see everyone's faces. So yeah, I'm giving this talk here. I called it "Surely You Must Be Joking: Jupyter Notebooks with Ruby." I thought it was a funny. I like that book. "Surely You Must Be Joking." Richard Feynman or Feynman. So I kind of like stole that. But today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to use Jupyter Notebooks and Ruby, and maybe what are the benefits, what is it for, and so that and yeah, I'll get into some of the other stuff later. But a little bit about me. Let's see if my buttons work. Did the slide change? Cool.
It is.
Awesome. I am a AI engineer at the CRM. And the CRM is a company that's revolutionizing dealership operations for the automotive and RV space. We have an AI tool called Olivia that helps sales folks kind of reduce how much time they're spending texting and messaging customers, and also kind of reduces a lot of the time spent doing a lot of manual labor. We're using LLMs for that. And I've been working there like 3 months. It's been good. Not doing Ruby, but I love Ruby and am doing Ruby in my spare time and wherever I can within the company. And prior to that, I had been doing some solo consulting, Ruby on Rails, sort of in the AI space. And then prior to that, I had been working for Test Double doing work on a lot of Ruby Rails projects. So love the Ruby community, love to help out in wherever I can. So I had a question for everyone today, and my question is, how do you share code? And I'm just gonna pause there. People can just like shout out, or maybe one or two people can share how they share code with others.
GitHub.
GitHub.
Rylan, Jess, Rylan.
Someone said GIST. GitHub. Yeah. Awesome. That's what I wanted to hear.
The GitLab version is
The GitLab version, which you said what?
Snippet.
Snippet.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Compress it and email it.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to share code. Jupyter is another way you can share code with others. But I don't really feel like this talk is really just about Jupyter. I feel like the purpose is just to get us thinking about how to share code more, just in general, in different spaces. So maybe you're sharing code on GitHub, and there's a reason for that. Maybe you chose to share it in a gist, and there's a reason for that. Maybe you emailed, a 5 gigabyte file to your best friend, and there's a reason for that. So just something to keep in the back of your mind as we kind of go through this journey. So recently, someone asked on Twitter as I was scrolling around, they were saying, hey, I want to build a simple chat with your docs tool on the web. How should I start? So I kind of thought about this for a while, and I was like, oh, last year I think it was, I gave a talk at Madison Ruby on this very topic. Um, how do you do sort of chat with your docs? You use retrieval-augmented generation to do that, and AI tooling, and it works really, really great. I think Andre in the Ruby community spoke on this topic like, 4 to 5 Boulder Rubies ago. So I probably won't go as in depth as he did, but I'll have like a little demo at the end to kind of show you some code. Um, but when I first tried to kind of share the chat with docs tool, the way that I did it was I put it in a little, well, first I wrote out the code and it was just a 1-line script file. And then someone tapped me on the shoulder and was like, hey, you should put that in a gem. So the way I was sharing code was I packaged all the code I had up, my chat with docs code, and put it into this simple rag gem. And I thought, hey, that's a great way to share code, to get kind of eyes on it. And I got some engagement there, and some people found it useful. But when I saw that question posted, I kind of felt like, man, I really want to like share this code, but really just put it in people's faces. Like you can't miss it. You don't have to like go to GitHub. GitHub's a great site, but you don't have to go there and click through my lib file and dig through and try to figure out what's going on. Was there a way I could share it on social media that was a little bit more closer to the user? So I found this tool called Carbon, where you can, many of you have maybe used it, where you can just like paste code, or there's a lot of these like code prettifiers, and it makes this cute little picture that you can like share on social media, so everyone can like see whatever code you're trying to do. So I kind of cherry picked a lot of the code and kind of cleaned it up and formatted it, and I made this like pretty picture that looks like this, and then I proceeded to post it, all the colors, post it on the site formerly known as Twitter, and LinkedIn. And I was really surprised by the engagement that I got, because the original code that I had spent a lot of time on, bundled it up into a gem, put it out there, gave a talk on it. I got about like 30 stars on GitHub, and I was like, yeah, people find it pretty interested. But then I was really surprised that I got like over 200 likes and like 30 plus reshares on these 2 posts. And it made me think like, I wonder why the engagement was different, but the content was the same, and it was a little bit stale. It was about seven months out, and it just sort of got me thinking like, maybe there's like different ways we can share code. After I posted this, coincidentally enough, someone said, hey, can you post a gist link? And I was like, interesting. Like I posted this really cool picture of code, and he didn't want to like manually type it all in. Like how strange. So I didn't end up posting a gist link. I figured someone would, but I ended up posting this. And this is like a AI training that I had been working on with another person where I'm at right now in Rochester, that had a Jupyter notebook with the code in that picture. Personally, I'm trying to get more people into it on the Ruby side. I just think it's a fun tool, great way to share code snippets and have them be easily runnable. I shared that there. So just wanted to circle back, how do you share code? We talked about just, there's Jupyter notebooks now. You could send the 5 gig file to your friend. And it kind of gets me thinking like, sharing code is actually a little bit challenging. It's easy in the sense that we can share any code we want with anyone, like that, like the mechanism for sharing code, really, really easy. There's so many different ways to do it. But the tricky part is how you share code matters. So if I share it in a way where people can see it and it's easily accessible and they can look at it and kind of think through it really quickly, it may have one effect. If I share a large project with 30,000 lines of code, it may have a different impact on the person receiving it. If I do a pull request, I'm technically still sharing code, and there's going to be comments associated with that and discussion that goes along with that. And you know, we want as developers, I'm assuming, to when we share code, we want a lot of times to get more engagement out of what we share. But that doesn't always happen. And the pessimistic person in me says, you know, the reason we're not getting an engagement, the reason we're not getting discussion around the code that we share is like people are really lazy. Like they just don't want to do it. They just don't want to go to github.com, click 3 buttons, dig into the code and find that method that they need. They don't want to look at the implementation. People are just they're just lazy. They don't want to do it. But I'm a pragmatist and I really I want to lean more towards optimism. And I just want to say like I think people are a little bit busy. You know, like I got a lot of stuff going on, like, you know, work, play, you know, I'm typing up my own coding projects, then I'm scrolling through Netflix, watching shows and just living my life. You know, I don't have time to like click through a bunch of links and like try to find every bit of code. You know, I'm gonna Google search and maybe the first 2 links I'm gonna click and you know, I gotta solve my problems. So how can we share code in a way that, you know, people are more likely to engage with? And I think the answer is, it's not really an answer, but it's more of a thought of like, hey, how can we make it as easy as possible for people? And maybe assuming the best. I think I have a duplicate slide here. So when sharing code, thinking about how do we make it easy, um, and maybe we need to focus on the goals of what we want out of sharing that code. Like I said, like maybe if I'm sharing it on social media, like I want engagement. You know, maybe if I'm sharing it with my team, I want critical thought and empathetic analysis and coaching to help me become a better developer. Um, so I wanna throw out a couple goals that you might have as you're trying to share your code. One goal could be to reduce the code viewing friction in a visually appealing way. Like, you know, maybe it's a challenging piece of code and I structure it in a way and I use a tool like Carbon and I post it and I ask a question on social media just to get people thinking and commenting about maybe the way we do callbacks or the way we structure some method or um, really anything at all, like to start a discussion there and have the code be easy to read for kind of a quick glance in a discussion. Um, I've seen that a lot on social media. Another thing is maybe the goal is I want to be able to, I want someone to be able to copy my paste my code sort of as a utility. Like they're trying to accomplish some task, they Google search and my code comes up. I want to copy it and paste it and kind of move on with my life. You know, maybe that Carbon, you know, image screenshot like isn't the best way to do that, you know, unless you're a really fast typer and can type 300 words a minute. I can't. Um, so maybe something like a gist would be wonderful for that. And then maybe the code is just a way to and explore an idea or a new way of doing something. And we see this all the time. You may not think of this as like a real way that to share code, but it really is. People write blog posts all the time, and you get more of a description on like what the code is, and maybe step-by-step instructions about what certain pieces of the code are doing. And I think that's a really great way to share code. And I want to posit that maybe Jupyter notebooks are another great way to share code in a similar way. And I really like Jupyter notebooks. Like I said, I've been trying to do more AI work, but I don't know if I mentioned this, like I'm trying to help bring more AI knowledge to the Ruby community. And I'm really interested in Jupyter Notebooks for that reason, because there's a lot of concepts in sort of the AI ML space that aren't easily digestible without some sort of explanation or graphic or other piece of like a picture or something else to go along with it. And so blog posts or something like Jupyter Notebook that's a little bit more interactive could be helpful in sharing these concepts for like software developers so that we can kind of level up our knowledge on like how to adapt to this whole kind of new AI space. Or really, you know, maybe someone just wants to show someone else their code in a really easily packaged up, digestible way. And this is just a great little way to like share with someone and have them sort of execute different cells in the notebook. So I think here I have to switch, and I'm gonna give you a little, one of my slides are out of order. I'll just go forward. I have two demos, so stop sharing. I'm also watching the time. I'm at 16 minutes. Let's see. So I'm gonna share my new screen.
Real quick, how many in the room know what Jupyter Notebooks is? So let's say maybe half the room, please.
Oh, cool. Yay. This is great. That actually makes me excited. So, let's go to this one. So, what is Jupyter Notebook? Jupyter Notebook is an open source tool and open source web application that allows you to create and share documents containing live code, equations, visualizations, markdown, and you can also put like, in I guess with the markdown, like sort of narrative text. It was really popular in sort of, I'd say like kind of the academic space. A lot of Python data scientists were using it to kind of do data analytics. A lot of times when you're doing data analytics, you need graphs and charts and all these different things. And you can kind of embed all those graphs and all those charts and equations in the notebook along with code. So if you have a really complex idea that you're trying to express and like share with the team, you can share it with someone and they can go through line by line and execute what you're working on or edit it and give you feedback in real time. So that's kind of what the intended purpose was. Originally, it came out for Julia, Python, and R language, but some developers got together and they created a Ruby kernel, which allows you to use Ruby in the notebooks, and that code is called iRuby. It's an iRuby gem that you can use. And we're going to play around with this, and I'm going to kind of show you some of the features of the Jupyter Notebook as we go along here. So first up, we can kind of drop some of these sections, which is really nice because you can kind of scroll and you can kind of go to a section that's most interesting to you and maybe work in that space. But if we go back to the top, we're going to go and kind of learn a little bit about some of the keyboard shortcuts. So everything in Jupyter Notebook is a cell. So if I double click this is a cell. You can see here it's just some markdown with some text. If I delete this and run this cell, shift enter, I can get rid of that little emoji icon there. So here's a couple of the shortcut commands. We just use shift enter, which executes the code or the text in that cell. And this is a cell as well. So you can see this is all just markdown. So shift enter executes it and runs that. We can do control enter, which will also execute the cell, but the difference is it'll stay in that cell. If we do, let's see if I know how to undo this. If you do DD, it will delete a cell. So that whole section just went away. And I just control Z to revert that. And then if we do escape A, escape B, we can insert cells above and below. And then we can switch between the two different types of cells. So this is a markdown cell since it has markdown, but there's also code cells. So if we look in first steps, we'll see here we have a code cell. So with a little challenge where it says we can click here, and then if we do shift enter, we can run the cell. So I was going to ask if anybody knows what this is going to do, but we're all Rubies here. So it says puts hello Jupyter, and then it says puts today is time.now string of time a b d y. So if we shift enter that, Ruby code is getting executed right below that. So that's super useful, and this will kind of stay cached in the notebook so that if we decide, hey, we want to run all this code and then we want to say go file, there's a way to like save a PDF, save export notebook as like a PDF. We can save this as a PDF, print it, and hand someone this document here, and they can read it, read all the executed code that you put in the notebook, which could be really useful if you're, I don't know, in a meeting or something like that. Next, we're going to go to this new section. Also, if anyone has a question, feel free to like interrupt me at any time. Just going to say that. So here we have another interactive thing. So we can click here and escape B to create a new cell down here. And if we type puts in this code cell 1.10 and then sum, we can sum up. Ooh, I don't know what happened there.
There's no space after puts.
Thank you. We get 55. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be in a room full of Rubyists. This cell here, it's just showing some of the markdown that you can use. You're all familiar with this, I imagine, just from like GitHub. I'm always fascinated. I have to say, I'm always fascinated by this. I cannot remember like LaTeX stuff. I wish I could just write it. It'd be so cool. But a lot of Googling for that. The other thing about the cells is the state will be persistent across cells. So we have this class counter where we set a variable to 0, and then we have a method increment that is invoked, and it will simply puts count is now count, and then since we're incrementing it each time, this should increment if we run it multiple times. So, oh no, it didn't work. I did that on purpose. So the ordering matters. So if I try to execute this and I haven't actually, try to execute, the counter class, it's the same as like going into IRB and saying counter increment. It doesn't know what that is. So we have to execute this and then shift enter here. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4. Fun part is we can change our code. We can say increment by 5 and then execute that, and then we can now see our incrementing go up by 5. So there are several different output types that you can see here. So we saw that we put text before up here, but there's also HTML markup here, and then you can also throw errors if you want. There we go. So if you're doing some sort of like call out to the web, you can, have some error and handling in there and raising issues. And then down here, you can also import different libraries and other gems that you want to use. You just have to make sure that, right now I'm running this in a Docker container. You just have to make sure you install those gems on whatever device that you're running the notebook within. So a couple of quick tips is just to save often. Because sometimes in this environment, if you're running really complex things, I've done like a lot of vector embedding, it will crash, and then you'll have to restart your notebook, which is easy enough. You can go to kernel restart and to kind of fix that issue. Another pro tip is sometimes if you just want to clear the outputs, so I ran all this code, I want it all to go away, we can go to restart kernel and clear all outputs. That will start the notebook fresh and allow people to kind of go through it at their leisure. So that was that. Any questions there?
Can you, can you disable the compiler? Like, let's say that you were using this for an example that is incomplete code, like maybe I'm giving an example of a curl command that takes an auth header with a token. So I'm not going to have the token in the code example that I'm showing. So if you ran it, it would fail. Is there a way to elegantly handle those kinds of like examples of code that you just know aren't going to actually run? How would you handle that in a Jupyter notebook?
I'd probably, that's a good question. I think the way I would do it, probably just like put it in a comment or maybe just
Okay.
do like a markdown
Okay, so
cell.
you're just showing one type of cell, but there's other.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
sorry about that. So if I click B here, so this cell right now is a code cell. We could tell it's a code cell because we could put code in here and put hello. I can't do it today. I've been doing Python too, so it's like I'm fighting to type prints. So I don't know what my excuse is for puts. So that it's a code cell, you know, because you can execute it there, but also up here it will tell you what kind of cell it is. If I click down here, we know
Okay.
that's a markdown cell. I click here, it's a code cell. I can change it to a markdown cell. It just will print that code. I guess there's this other cell, sorry, that I never use. What is this, raw?
I think raw would probably be what you'd want to use for like a code example that you don't want people to try to run.
You should probably just do
Yeah,
mark.
I think that's right.
Does the markdown do code syntax highlighting?
Well, who did the text?
What was that question?
Can you do code syntax highlighting in the markdown cells?
Oh,
Because that would probably,
Possibly, like this?
yeah.
Yeah. All the stuff you can use in the README. It's great.
When you share this with someone, do you collaborate with others on it? Or do you like share a file out that is a Jupyter notebook?
Yeah, so when I share this with someone, so the way I've been using it right now is this is actually a training that I've been giving to companies on how to use AI in like Ruby ecosystems. We have another one for Python. So when we share this out, we share the whole GitHub, and there's a Docker file, and you can kind of run a container, and you will have the environment on your local computer, everything you need. You just have to bring your own OpenAI key to sort of run all these notebooks. And so if you, I guess I can kind of, I just want to show you sort of the process of how I started it up. I probably should just share my whole screen. Yeah, that looks right. Where do I want to go? Windows are hard. Can you, oh no. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah, we did 2 demos
Okay.
ago.
Awesome. So I'm gonna go to GitHub.
We don't see that. We see your slide right
We
now.
see your slide, we don't see the
Oh,
other.
you see my slide? Okay. Why did it switch to, I must have clicked something. Desktop 2. Oh, I didn't click share, that's why. You see this now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we get to see GitHub.
So we charge for this training, but we give all the materials away for free. So anyone can go to this github.com, the Days and Gray Ruby AI training. It has all their training materials in here. And over here, there's like a guide. You just have to clone it, CD into it, and then you Docker compose. I think I'm gonna have to double check this. Run this, and if it doesn't work, let me know. But then you Docker compose up. I'm like, maybe there was a build, but I don't know. We might have changed something. But you Docker compose up, and you will get your environment. So let me show you what that looks like. Oops, I have it running over here. So this is it running in Visual Studio. I'm just going to kill it. It's going to gracefully stop. You will need to download Docker and have this running. But once this stops, you can do Docker compose up. And what will happen is it will start running all the things that need to be ran to support these notebooks. And you'll see in here, there's this URL link, and it has a token. If you command click that, it will open this Jupyter. I forget what this is called. I guess it's like there's like a name for it, the Jupyter something. But what was it?
Launcher?
Launcher, yeah. But in notebooks, these are all the notebooks that are available. And the one I showed, the talk is down here, but these are all the AI notebooks. So you can kind of go in and look at the code. There's like agents and structured outputs and OpenAI and things like that. This is all open source. And if you want to create your own notebook, you can say like new, and then say notebook. And then you can specify which notebook you want. So there's Ruby, Julia R, and then Python 3. Nobody wants that though. How am I doing on time? I lost my timer. I think I'm at time, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Cool. Sweet. I had another thing, but I will save that in my back pocket. Any questions or comments or really just any feedback? Like, I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't really see the benefit of Jupyter Notebook versus like just having a one-line code editor. I see a hand over here.
Yes. So like how often are you using this day to day? And then what's like a go-to use case for you?
Yeah, so day to day, I'm not using it a ton. A lot of the times when I'm using it, I'm trying to implement a specific sort of AI use case. And the other use case I'm using it is for the training. I just find it to be a really great tool when I'm doing a training to say, hey, we all have the same environment. You can run things sequentially in that Docker container with Jupyter, and it's easy to like help folks kind of debug and follow along. And then on the other side, when I was talking about implementing something, so there's a lot of like Jupyter notebooks built out in Python. And what I'll try to do is, or if I see like a tutorial like on like OpenAI about how to do like structured outputs or like agents or something like that, I'll start in a Jupyter notebook and I'll just like put my code in the cells and I'll just execute as I go to try to like incrementally like build out the problem. Now you can do this in like a single script. I just find it to be the flow of it to be really like a nice flow to work in. It doesn't, my critique of Jupyter notebooks is like when you get to a larger scale, like I was trying to implement some work for a client that I had when I was running my consulting business full time. I was trying to implement some things that got really, really complex. So kind of when I was showing you that area where there was like the drop down and it like showed more code and I tried to break the code up into units, it just got really, really long. And it was just sort of like unwieldy. When it gets to that point, you really probably just want to switch to your IDE and start structuring out code in your Rails app or something like that. But if I'm trying to teach like or show someone how to implement like a complex algorithm or something, it's really nice to be able to be like step by step and have like the little comments there about like what different methods or functions mean, what certain equations mean, putting like the mathematical formulas, like that's really hard to do in code. Like if there's a mathematical like linear function, like putting the equation for that in code and say implement that is like kind of annoying. You probably have to like put your code there and have like a separate picture on the side or just like a static readme, and you can't really execute it. So that's kind of how I like to use it. It's not something I use every day, but it's just another, I'd say, useful tool in your tool belt that you may think like, hey, I think this is the right time to grab this. It's kind of like the Geico commercial where they're like, so easy a caveman could do it too. It's like if there's like a 3-year-old that you want to teach to code, it's like really cool to be like, hey, you can click this shift enter and execute stuff. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Do you ever host the Docker containers for your training somewhere instead of having your users like download and run them on their own machines?
We haven't hosted them yet. Actually, I don't know. Maybe Max has them, but
I
yeah,
mean,
we
like
haven't.
when you started, I assumed that there was like a Jupyter Notebook cloud. And so, I was thinking of a web app, like I go into my browser to jupyternotebook.com and I create a Jupyter Notebook and I give
Yeah,
my friend the link. And you could do that with your Docker container, but you'd have to host it yourself.
yeah. There's something called like My Binder, which
Oh,
has like hosting. Binder, I think. Sorry, I'm not sharing it. I don't know who owns this. It's some good Ruby folks, I think. But I think there may be a way to use this tool to sort of host it. Oops. I just lost it.
I think AWS might have a solution too for hosting. Like they have their own managed Jupyter Notebook product.
no.
Yeah, I think Google does.
Yeah. The other two that I've used, am I still sharing? Oh, I never did share. Oops, sorry. I don't think I ever did share. Oh well. The other two things I've used was like I worked with one client and they had like access to Mode, which had like its own notebook interface. I really didn't like Mode. Like it some of the features that I expected from Jupyter Notebook were like missing. I'm forgetting which ones at the time. And then the other option for like these notebook style interfaces, Google Colab, if anybody's used that. But the problem with Google Colab right now is there's like a bug where it's hard to like you can't really run the iRuby because it's like the wrong version of like Ubuntu, and I haven't really looked into it to try to figure out what it would take to fix it. But there's like I wrote a blog post on like a small workaround, but it's not like a full solution. So in terms of running Ruby code, this is probably the best. So
All right. Well, thank you, Landon. That was
yeah,
great.
thank you all.
And we're gonna roll right into Anthony.